Well, thanks, Dimitri, for having me. This is a great event that you've set up. I think this is a great opportunity also to really showcase the opportunities that are available in Ethiopia in different sectors, but in this case here, for the next 20 minutes or so, in the digital arena. This is, I think, a timely conversation because, as you know, we've had a pretty encouraging development here in Ethiopia in the last 3 weeks in the liberalization of the telecommunication sector. We now have a consortium who's going to be deploying 4G, 5G, and a number of telco services starting almost in the next few weeks, and creating at the same time in the process close to 1.5 million jobs. As you know, Ethiopia had a monopoly up until now with Ethio Telecom with close to 45 million subscribers. So it was a monopoly with a pretty large user base, and the internet penetration is close right now to 20%. I wanted to provide that background to kind of put in perspective what Ethiopia is up to in terms of the digitization, but also again, the use of technology. But let me also now double click a little bit on the demographics, because I think it's good to understand also what Ethiopia is looking like in terms of its youth, its skills, and again, the opportunities that are available in this arena. So let me share my screen here. So one thing that I would like to do is really talk about the, again, the offshoring opportunities. Give me 1 second here while I figure out how to show this. Okay, so okay, there you go. So I'll talk a little bit about one specific opportunity for offshoring. But again, before doing that, let me provide a little bit of background in terms of, the youth, the population, etc. So one really big takeaway here from this presentation is that this is a very youthful population. We have 70% of the population that is less than 30 years old. So this is very important for those of you who are looking to provide digital related services. Or engage with Ethiopia using digital channels. Again, 70% less than 30 years old with a population of 110 million. We're talking about folks in the millions who are ready to adopt those kinds of technologies, but quickly. So that's kind of the key word here, is that you have a trainable pool of talent in Ethiopia who can quickly adopt some of these technologies or really get on some of those channels that you would like to use if you want to engage with Ethiopia. Double clicking a little bit on the talent that's graduating here every year in Ethiopia, we have close to 200,000 STEM students graduating every year, and really with different kinds of skills: computer science, information systems, software engineering. And I'm just right now looking at those degrees that are relevant to, again, that digital kind of conversations. But the point here is that, as I was saying earlier, these are folks who can be quickly trainable. So even if you have someone who's graduating with, let's say, a bachelor's in mechanical engineering or civil engineering, because some of those guys are now connected, they're connected, right? And they have that thirst for knowledge. They can be quickly trained on new technologies, whether it be application development, enterprise software, etc. And when you look at the cost, right? When you look at the cost for talent here in Ethiopia, you're looking at really one of the lowest, not just in Africa, but really in the world. And so for those of you in France or elsewhere in Europe who are looking to set up shop in Ethiopia, or right now maybe you're considering, again, maybe setting up shop in another location in the Philippines or in India, or some of those locations, maybe in North Africa, etc. Some of those I would call the traditional geographies. I would like to challenge you today and really think about maybe setting up shop in Ethiopia, where again, you could really score labor arbitrage. As an example, right? If you want to hire someone for data entry or some kind of back office process, whether it be in banking, telco, etc., you're looking at, in some cases, less than $10 an hour. And then for those folks, let's say junior talent to mid-level or intermediary type of talent, for software engineering, again, maybe the number that you want to take away here is that you can find great talent at about $15 an hour. Someone who can, help with the app development or doing some kind of quality assurance in your ERP or CRM type of implementation. So again, these are some of the figures that would get you to consider Ethiopia. And then, when you look at the real estate costs, there are some dedicated parks in Ethiopia. On top of the industrial parks, I think today, some of my colleagues will be touching on also the logistics and light manufacturing opportunities, but really also in the area of ICT, we have dedicated parks with pretty attractive real estate costs, right? But then I think the most also attractive parameter here for Ethiopia would be the electricity cost. So again, in Ethiopia, not just for within Africa, but of course in the world, we have one of the cheapest costs for electricity. You're looking at 6 cents for kilowatt hour here in some of these in Ethiopia. So this is kind of the background in terms of why you would consider Ethiopia as an offshoring opportunity. When you look at the connectivity, I was touching on that a little bit earlier. We have, and this slide is already dated because, like I said, recent developments here. We have now a new telco provider, but again, we have pretty good 3G coverage here in Ethiopia. But then also with 4G as well, with the Ethio Telecom really going around in the country and deploying 4G LTE and whatnot. But then now with the new license also being issued, you're looking at, in some cases, 5G being deployed in the next 1 year or two in a large part of the territory. I think there are also a number of incentives, even compared to our friends in Africa, that are somewhat attractive for those of you who want to engage in the ICT sector. And we can share the slides later on for more details. But let me talk about a little bit more about what are some of those developments and then also opportunities here in Ethiopia in the digital realm. As you may know, Ethiopia adopted a digital strategy 2025 back in June of last year. We are also gearing up, and I'm one of the advisors on this one, for the approval of a startup act, what we call here in Ethiopia, the Startup and Innovative Businesses Proclamation. But then there's been also a number of policies around e-transactions, e-commerce, really paving the way for a lot of opportunities in fintech, right? But the digital. I want to come back to the digital strategy 2025. What that really shows is the eagerness of the leadership, right, within the government, but also in the private sector, to really digitize a number of e-gov services, as well as, in the private sector, really adopt enterprise software and a bunch of applications that are going to make, again, some of those either government services, but also private entities more efficient. So I would say the one big opportunity, right, for digital or let's say enterprise software solutions will be, again, deploying at scale some of those solutions. Let me actually try to shift here. So yeah, so really a bunch of large applications that can be deployed for those enterprise software. eGov is also another big area where I think it's a pretty clean slate. What you can do here if you come to Ethiopia is really digitize a bunch of eGov services. So it could be in the logistics sector, it could be something related to ease of doing business. But there is, again, that thirst for transforming all those services. Digital ID is another big opportunity. So again, we could go on and on, but one thing I would really like to point you to is the Digital Strategy 2025, where you will see, in a nutshell, basically four pathways for digital transformation, namely, agriculture, digital-enabled services, tourism, and the IT-enabled services. This is another big one, by the way, that I think I missed, is that in Ethiopia, the tourism sector is fully untapped, and there are a bunch of opportunities, again, of deploying enterprise software to hotels, to pretty much the whole hospitality arena. Of course, this is when COVID subsides. The other aspect here that I wanted to highlight was also the whole infrastructure aspect around data. So Ethiopia is strategically positioned in East Africa, where it could almost play a role as a node for redundancy, right? And as I was pointing out earlier, the electricity cost is pretty attractive. And so you could be establishing a data center here with your electricity costs being really one of the lowest in Africa. Your overhead, therefore, would be pretty low in terms of electricity. But then also, even in terms of the climate, because this is a climate that is pretty cool, I would say pretty much throughout the year, you don't have to have too many expenses in terms of AC, in terms of cooling really your facility. So data centers, again, as a node for redundancy, but also really to address the really growing demand for cloud. We have a pretty still emerging, but an ecosystem for startups that is growing every day, and the demand for data services is growing. When you look at the banking sector, same thing. You have also a demand that is ever growing. And a lot of these folks, especially in the startup ecosystem, are purchasing cloud services abroad, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? So we recently had interest from 4 private sector data center providers here in Ethiopia, and they started to set up shop in actually the what I was referring to as the dedicated park for ICT, so the ICT park earlier, and but we need more. That's kind of the point, is that there are actually some, in terms of the banking sector, some policies around the fact that the data center and the bank need to be co-located. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of these policies kind of evolve in the next few months. So again, I couldn't emphasize the need here for data and data centers and cloud services in general. And there's a massive opportunity to do just that, because it's really a clean slate. Maybe the last one that I would like to that sometimes goes missed. The other opportunity would be around purely project management. So soft skills, so to speak, in the digital arena. So project management, quality assurance, standards, right? So you're looking at also a consulting arena, and I guess if you set up shop here in Ethiopia, you'll be somewhat our competitor, especially if you're a strategy shop. But the point is that there are a number of opportunities, and there is enough demand for a lot of players here to come in Ethiopia. Again, project management, organizational change management, keeping up with standards and processes, post-merger integration. I think we will see in the next few years an inflation in the number of deals here in Ethiopia, because this is, remember, I think maybe some of the previous speakers have touched on the fact that this was a country that was led primarily by the government with a development strategy that was driven by the public sector. But now in the last few months, especially with the new administration, there's been a pivot towards a development strategy being driven and putting the focus on the private sector. So again, I think as some of these privatization efforts, liberalization efforts take place, and the telco sector is just one of them, but definitely a very important one, you will see a number of deals, because I think, in my opinion, the banking sector is the next domino to fall in this liberalization of the sector. And there's a number of other opportunities, in terms of even talent hiring. It was somewhat closed for Ethiopian nationals and Ethiopian origins, but some of these things are also going to open up. So as you see a lot of these sectors opening up, there are going to be a number of deals happening. And so you will need, again, that advisory type of service for project management, post-merger integration type of efforts, organizational change management, and then standards and processes, quality assurance, because again, it's a pretty clean slate. And it's not just that I think there is a market, but there's really definitely a need for that, and the government definitely recognizes this again through and you can see that through some of those policies that have been issuing. So and there are also other pocket opportunities even within the startup ecosystem that I was talking about, in terms of e-commerce, setting up shop as an incubator or accelerator. Hopefully some of those folks that have been trying to do this in the past are now going to go through gymnastics in the future once the Startup Act is approved. But hopefully, you'll see also VCs, PEs, incubators, accelerators setting up shop here in Ethiopia without, again, going through some kind of a gymnastic where they register in the Mauritius island and kind of show up here as a consultancy. The Startup Act will hopefully, if it's approved in the next few weeks, or we're talking about weeks or months here, hopefully will address some of these issues. So again, before I close, in a nutshell, the opportunities in the digital arena, outsourcing. So outsourcing definitely is a big one, because we have a pretty large human capital. So considering Ethiopia as an offshoring destination for your development or contact center or what have you, e-government type of services, talent sourcing, because you can also hire talent through freelancing platforms or just purely hire folks out of Ethiopia, data center infrastructure, as well as cloud services, potential, specific opportunities within the startup ecosystem with e-commerce, fintech, and things like that. And then finally, what I was talking about, and it was just staying also on the startup ecosystem, incubation, acceleration, and investment standpoint, hopefully PE and VC, but again, without going through gymnastics. And then finally, related to some of those pretty large enterprise software implementations, standards, processes, project management, organizational change management, quality assurance, and so on and so forth. So again, thank you a lot, Dimitri and the team for setting up this conversation. I look forward to discussing with whoever would like to continue the conversation on any of these opportunities that I mentioned. And again, this is Bernard, managing partner at LAURENDEAU and Associates. Thank you, Dimitri.